I think you already answered the question, but if I'm an agent and I want to start in commercial real estate, where should I start? What area of commercial real estate? It seems like it's really a good idea to work with property owners that also have a business and also in the health industry. Seems like there is a really good loans. Easier ways to get loans. What would be your advice?
Yeah, it really depends on what your long-term goals are. So when we talk to people in our coaching program, for example, we ask them like, what is your long-term goals? So if they say my long-term goal is to, I want to own my own properties, that I want to buy my own apartment complexes, or I want to own commercial properties down the road, then I typically recommend that maybe you should start with investment sales because that's what you want to do. At the end of the day, you want to buy your own properties. Like, so why not become a broker helping clients buy investment properties? Because that gives you the opportunity to work with some of those investors. Because one of the things in commercial real estate, and a lot of commercial agents do this, is they partner with their clients to say, hey, let me manage the property for you and let me go find the deal. You will buy it or we'll partner together to buy it. I'll do the management and everything. And then we get a piece of the deal, right? So that opportunity is huge in commercial, more than in residential, right? Because pretty much every deal is big. A lot of our commercial clients are very busy individuals, business owners, or investors who don't want the time to manage it. So if you can take care of the day-to-day affairs of the property, you have an opportunity to invest with other people, right? To say, so that is definitely one advantage in commercial estate. But where do you start? There is nothing wrong with starting anywhere. If you don't like it, you can try something else. Like, so it's not like marriage, right? You can start somewhere, and a lot of people start with commercial leasing because there's a lot of money to be made in commercial leasing, and it's easy to get into commercial leasing, and so people start in commercial leasing. Sometimes people start with working with landowners to sell land. Sometimes you go into development. So I don't know if there's a right or wrong answer. I can tell you, for me, I like investment sales only because I'm an investor and I like working with investors. But we work with everybody in our programs that are specializing in leasing, specializing in development, specializing in management and things like that. So that there are different avenues for you to choose.
Right, right. So you may have an investor. The loans may be a little bit more difficult to get, but the investor and the investment groups, they have a financial muscle, and then if you are working with them, you're gonna get a lot of experience as an agent. If you're working with a buyer that is gonna occupy the building as a business, maybe that's gonna be your only client, and but on the other hand, it's a more secure client that for sure is gonna get the finance, they need the building.
Easy to, especially in today's market, right? But you're absolutely right, Juan. So if you work with an investment group, they are more likely to buy multiple properties, right? So if you do a good job for them, you may get repeat business from them, right? So their group is going to buy 3-4 properties a year. Every year they'll be buying multiple assets. So if you have a good relationship with the group, you have repeat business as well for yourself. So it's all good, but even owner user sales are fine because a lot of people will buy multiple buildings. And plus, don't forget the fact that if you provide good customer service and if you're knowledgeable, you're going to get referral business, right? So you may help a doctor to buy their building, and he's going to recommend you to 10 of his friends, right? So you're going to be selling 10 buildings for his friends as well. So there's always ways we keep to all.
That sounds very good. Let's talk a little bit about multifamily. That specialty. I know that you have done many deals in multifamily, specialize in multifamily, also in the finance area. Can we talk a little bit about multifamily and those details?
Yeah, absolutely. So multifamily is my favorite asset class, and that's the asset class I invest in myself as well. So obviously, when we're looking at all commercial properties to invest, there's nothing wrong with any of these. There are, single tenant net lease properties. A lot of investors like those. We are looking to get a higher return for ourselves and a higher return for our investors. So we typically like to buy what's called a value add multifamily investment, right? So these are properties where they are underperforming compared to other properties. So we can go in there and fix it up or improve the operations and management. So that is one of the reasons that we pick multifamily as our preferred asset class. Now, what we find out is we also work with a lot of individual investors. These are like doctors and dentists and people who are working in IT companies or small business owners. And it's easier to raise money for a deal when it's multifamily, right? Because they understand they're typically a residential investor. They all want to get into multifamily, but they don't have enough funds to get into multifamily. But by putting a group together, we can provide them an opportunity to invest into multifamily and get all the tax benefits and all that other stuff. So we found that a little bit easier. But we as agents, we also work with other investors who don't like multifamily. Like multifamily also comes with a little bit more management that because you're dealing with some people like families, right? But a lot of investors like medical office buildings, they like retail shopping centers. So we work with what the investor wants. They tell us what kind of properties they like, and then our job is to ask them what is their investment criteria, right? What is a good deal for them, and then go to market and find the deals that will match their criteria. So multifamily is my personal choice, but we work with all kinds of investors, all kinds of property owners.
Very interesting. Let's talk about, okay, so we are finding the deal. I'm the real estate agent, residential. I started to do some commercial. I'm finding the deals. I have the client that has a really good finance, is an investor, and we are looking for a multifamily deal. Um, I like that deal. How do we determine the value of a multifamily or deal?
Yeah. So the way we look at valuation is we look at so we're talking about an investment sale or a cash flowing asset, right? So when you have, so in commercial estate, just like in residential, there are different ways to value properties. So you can look at the comps or market approach. You can look at the replacement approach or the cost approach, which is typically what insurance companies do. But the most important one is called the income capitalization. So basically, we are looking at the income that's generated by the property and then applying a market cap rate. I don't want to diverge into all the details of what that means, but you're basically looking at what investors are willing to pay for a property like that. So once we know what the investor is looking for, then we go find properties. And the way we value properties is primarily looking at the income of the property and then applying a market cap rate to come up with a value. So, a property that is $100,000 net operating income, which is your, income minus expenses of the property, and then, depending on the cap rate, we can do a simple math to come up with a value for the property, right? So that is how we approach it, mostly about looking at, and there is a method to doing this. There is a formula, and we have tools. We have access to data to help us with the cap rates, help us with the, and a lot of the time, commercial properties are also sold on a pro forma. A pro forma meaning that this is how much the property is generating today, but this is how much the property has the potential to generate. So sometimes we can sell a property based on the location and how much people want it. So a lot of the time we can look at the property and say, oh, this property is worth about $5 million based on current value, but we can probably sell it for like $6 or $7 million to an investor who's looking for the future value of the property, right? By putting a pro forma together and creating a business strategy for them to say, if you do this and this and this, you can get, the property value up to $10 million. So now, you're not going to pay $10 million for and do all the work, but maybe you will pay an extra million. So you have the opportunity to now go and make another few $1 million, by improving the property operations. So there are different strategies that are used.
That's very nice. When you use the strategy to improve the property, is the main strategy to uh, to focus on the cap rate or to focus on increasing the revenue of the property?
Increasing the revenue is the best way to do it. So we typically look for properties that have, rents below market compared to other properties. And then we study the property to see if we do ABC, meaning that let's say interior upgrades or we add some, exterior amenities like swimming pool or whatever, we come up with a business plan and say, if you do this and this and this, can we get the rents to the higher rents, right? And if you think that yes, after doing our analysis, then those are the preferred investments for us, right? Because basically what we are doing is we are forcing appreciation, right? So the market can appreciate naturally or depreciate. Sometimes the values goes down, right, based on supply and demand in the market. But we are looking for opportunities where we can force the appreciation. Just like, if you're buying a fixer-upper home and you're rehabbing it and then you're selling it for a higher price, right? So this is same concept here, just done at a much larger scale. So instead of rehabbing one house, we are rehabbing 100 units, right? So, and sometimes it's not about rehab, it's also about having the right management, right operations, right marketing, and good customer service. There are a lot of different parts that will help to increase the value of the property by increasing the revenue of the property, right? So the more revenue you have, typically the more value you can create in the property. So that is one of the advantages of multifamily. And you can do this for any property class, but multifamily seems to be a little bit more conducive to do that. And some people like self-storage buildings. It depends on what you like to do.
Right. Let's just talk a little bit about cap rate. When I started in commercial, cap rate, it got me really confused. What is a cap rate? Why do commercial brokers advertise the cap rate of a property? Is the cap rate comes from an expectation of the market to certain value of a asset class or a specific property? Can you comment on it?
Yeah, it is specific property, but it is generalized a lot of times. So cap rate is a short for capitalization rate. So basically, you are looking at, and cap rate is a function of supply and demand, right? So for example, if there is let's say there's a 20-unit multifamily property in a submarket, and it's a C-class property, let's say built in 1980s or whatever. So basically, cap rate is a reflection of how much other investors are willing to pay for similar properties. So it's going to vary when you're talking about multifamily, it's definitely going to vary by the age of the property, the size of the property, how many units there are, where it's located, all of that. So the cap rate in Frisco, Texas may be different from the cap rate in, Lancaster, Texas. So it's going to vary from where the location is. So that is one of the things to consider. And then when you're looking at cap rates for retail properties and office properties, a lot of the time we are looking at, because these are long-term leases, that we'll be looking at the tenant itself, right? What is the quality of the tenant? Are they a national credit tenant? Are they a regional credit tenant? What is the lease guarantees? How many years is left in the term of the lease for that particular building? So there are a lot of other things that we consider also. But, what the meaning of cap rate is basically, it's literally your rate of return for the property for your first year, right? When you buy the property, not the previous, after you buy the property, what is the first year rate of return if you paid cash for the entire property, right? It's most of the time, you're going to finance a property, but if you were to pay for cash, if it's an all cash deal, what is your rate of return for the next 12 months is essentially cap rate. Cap rate is the rate of return for your first year.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I'm the agent. I'm starting in multifamily. I got the deal. I got the finance. I make an offer on a good cap rate for the buyer. Now we need to do the due diligence. What are those differences between residential and commercial due diligence?
Yeah, commercial due diligence, residential due diligence, typically, we do, an inspection and then we do the title work, right? That's usually as far as it goes on a residential due diligence. On commercial due diligence, there's a lot more, right? Because, we look at, depending on the property, if it's multifamily, you do the financial analysis, you do the legal analysis, you do the operational analysis, because you're buying a business, right? When you're buying a multifamily property, you're buying a business. So you have to look at, the legal, the different categories that we look at, right? So we have to look at our competition, look at the market rent analysis, look at the current rent analysis, look at the P&L to see, Are they optimized on the profit and loss? What are the different, expenses at the property? So there's a lot more involvement when you're doing due diligence for a commercial property. So that is something that, you get used to. And most of the time, if you're an agent, your clients are, pretty smart clients. Right? They know what to do, what they're doing. You're just helping them facilitate things. Right? So you don't have to worry about knowing all that stuff upfront. But at the end of the day, we all want to own our own properties. So it's good for us to understand exactly what we need to be looking for, so we can avoid, avoid making mistakes when buying properties or participating in properties.
That's awesome. That's great. So we do the diligence, and then we buy the property. Can you walk us through a sample, a real sample experience, Joseph, that you have done before or after CCIM? I don't know, but can you tell us
Tell
some experience?
Yeah, I can tell up on top of my last two deals, last two investment sale deals. Right, so we have done several other office deals. I mean, several owner user deals and leasing deals. But my last two investment deals, one was it was a 6 tenant retail center in the Dallas market. We had some pretty good tenants in there. So it had Dollar Trees and Subways, some like clients like that. So it was easy to market that because the tenants in the building were pretty strong tenants, and they all had long-term leases and these 5 years left on them. So we did a national marketing campaign, right? So to attract clients from all over the country who were looking for similar properties. So that was totally like that. And then the other deal I did, the last deal I closed, other than our loan properties, so we purchased a 270 unit property that was for our own investment, but I also did a small multifamily. It was 20 units. Basically, it was sold on a pro forma. The seller was very cooperative in the sense that he literally raised the value of the property while we were under contract. So it made it easy for the buyer, right, to say, hey, I went into contract under certain assumptions, but before I close the property, the rent at the property is gone up significantly, right? So we came with this. We were trying to sell it on a pro forma anyway, but while we were in the contract, seller just literally did it. So gave the good buyer, a property that already had a much higher value, right? So those are things that, a lot of this comes from experience, So, I don't want to minimize the value of having somebody who's experienced guiding you through this, because, my favorite thing is you don't know what you don't know, right? That's why you need to, work with somebody who's experienced broker, mentor to help you and help your clients.
That's impressive, Joseph. How do you stay up to date on market trends and changes in the industry?
Well, I think I'm an educator myself, so I love teaching. And if I have to be on top of my game, I have to be learning every day. So my philosophy is every day I'm going to learn something and then I'm going to teach it. So I'm not learning passively. I'm learning it because I have to teach it to 100 other people. So that's the way I approach it. I do a lot of my reading from, reading articles about commercial estate industry. I attend webinars, there's a lot of webinars out there. So I attend as many webinars as I can about financing, about 1031s, about all these different strategies. So every day, I at least spend 1 hour watching a webinar or reading an article or things like that, because I'm also learning. And once I learn something, I implement that in our business. And if I can prove that, hey, these things work, then I teach that to other people. So it is, that has helped me stay on top of the market. And then networking, right? So collaborating with other brokers, collaborating with other investors and sharing ideas and, being part of masterminds and networking with other agents. It's another way to learn and grow as well in the industry.
That is fantastic to learn that from you. How do you manage multiple clients and projects at the same time? I know that it takes a team to make things happen. What is it about how do we manage all those clients and all those projects?
Yeah, I think number one thing is you have to qualify the clients. I think commercial estate, which is the American dream. Like American dream is to own a home, and the second American dream is to own a business. So everybody wants to own a business, right? But they may not have the qualifications or they may not have the financial means to start a business. So And a lot of investors want to buy investment properties, but they may not have the financial strength to do it or the experience to do it. So qualifying your clients is the number one thing, right? So because your only thing that you have is your time, and you have to make sure that you're spending your time on income generating activities, right? And the worst thing you can do is spend a lot of time with clients who are never going to close any, right? So we have learned uh, from experience on how to qualify people a little bit better. So that's the number one thing. And then every client is going to be on a different schedule. So we kind of prioritize. I typically rank them by my A's and B's and C's. My A's are the ones that I give them a call every week. Right, my B's may get a call every month. My C's will get a call every 3 months, right? Because they're not quite ready to actively look for properties and stuff like that. And then the leverage. The leverage is having the team to help you with a lot of things, right? So I have agents who would make the calls, and once they get the client to say, yes, I want to buy something, then I get involved, right? So I don't have to get involved with every client, every aspect of it. They can take it to 80, 90%, and then we can close the deal, right? So we can help out. So having a leverage in the team, and I did not have leverage when I started, right? So, but now we have a little bit more leverage, and meaning that we have agents who can come and do a certain function, which is typically, doing the preliminary showing of the properties, showing up the lease spaces, making some calls to find some prospective clients. And then, once they have somebody raise their hand to say, yeah, I'd like to sell or I like to buy, then we get involved at that time to, help them through the transaction.
That sounds very good. Excellent. How do you assess the potential risk of a property before recommended it to a client?
Right. Yeah, there are several risks. It's part of your due diligence is, you're looking at the financial feasibility. I think the first thing is to understand what the client is looking for. So, we have clients that are considered core or core plus clients. They're looking for really good assets. We really give neighborhoods, and they're going to put 50%, 60% down payment. So they have a very low financial risk, but they're also getting a very low return for those properties also, but they don't care because they have enough money, and their goal is to buy good assets in good locations and minimize their risk. Then we have other investors who are more of the opportunistic investors or value-add investors that are willing to take a higher risk. They are also willing to do more work as far as renovations and stuff like that. So every client is different. I think the first thing is to understand, what is the client looking for, and your risk management also comes from that, right? So typically we are looking at financial risk of the property. Will the property perform, even if conditions change, right? So we do some stress testing on the deal to say, hey, what if the cap rate changes? The property is still going to perform. What if the interest rate changes? Is the property still going to perform? Then there are other legal political risks like, the covenants in place, there's zoning issues, there's permitting issues, there is a risk from flood, there is a risk from crime, so there's obviously inspection of the property, looking at the building itself, the foundation, the roof, the HVACs, the mechanics of the building, and, and looking at future development opportunities. There are so many things involved in commercial estate, but like I said before, most of the times the clients are smart enough, they know what to do when it comes to due diligence. We are guiding them through it. We want to make sure that they don't make a mistake. And a lot of the time we are our own clients. So we want to make sure that is another reason why we don't want to make mistakes. But eventually, if you're investing in real estate, there is risk associated with any investment. There is geopolitical risk, right? There is, what we are facing right now is a geopolitical, event, right? With war in Russia and inflation and things like that. Nobody could have planned for that. COVID, nobody could have planned for that, right? When you bought a building, 2 years before COVID happened, nobody could have planned for that. So those kind of things, you should be willing to take that risk. And if you're investing in real estate.
Right. So you plan ahead, and you make all sorts of planning so you don't make risks. You are in the business and you already bought the property, but things happen that you didn't plan for it. What do you do when things happen that that you were not thinking that they were gonna happen?
Yeah, so you have to approach this like you're in a business, right? So it's not a property ownership. You're buying a business, and just like you own any business, things are going to come up, right? Every business out there in America, they're dealing with problems every day, and part of being an entrepreneur is being a problem solver. So, when you buy a property, you're buying a business and things come up and you have to do your best to, what's the best solution? Look at all the alternative options you have in front of you and see what's the best option to solve that problem. And typically, we rely on other experts. We rely on our attorneys, we rely on our property managers, we rely on, other people, our CPAs, different people, to get advice on, hey, this is the situation they are in. What do we do to, mitigate some of the risk, or how do we course correct? How do we right the ship, right? Based on things come up. And, suddenly things come up when you are owning a business and you just have to figure out how to solve those problems. Right? That's part of being an entrepreneur.